Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Nichel Anderson. I'm your host for my podcast show, Nichel Anderson Short Stories and Beyond, where in this podcast, episode 25, it is entitled A Disagreement Among the Orions. Thank you so much again for joining me for this particular week as we continue on leading up to the finale episode for my first season, embarking on this particular venture of doing a podcast, which I love to do is writing. And in this case, writing stories, mainly dealing with MOLIAE. MOLIAE is from my book that's titled Mitsrayim, a memoir, that I later advanced from that and started doing stage plays from that, websodes, and the production is currently in the middle of preparing for the return to stage that I'm basically calling it the prestige return of MOLIAE. Pretty much stage play that has not been announced yet, but pretty much that's the goal, playing with that production going forward. And in this podcast, it gave me the opportunity to write more since I'm so busy with other projects and other things that I'm doing, and as well to be able to share the story of MOLIAE, how I came about of writing it, and these characters that were in the book, and I brought some of them out, at least 5, right? The main lead, of course, is Princess Aamina, and then of course the 2 kings, King Dama and King Daniel, and then her friends, which were pretty much Nahar and Salma. And they're the only one that I brought out into the stage at that particular time in the past few years ago. Not few years ago, it's been a while, but a couple years ago. And the future plan is pretty much is to bring the rest of the characters. When I went to websodes, when I did that, it was bringing out only Queen Hagar and not King Milan, which of course, if you've been following this podcast, King Milan is coming up a lot. And of course, Queen Hagar. And Comrade Datar was not the one that initially came out. Like I said, only those 5 characters that I mentioned. So this podcast give my followers that have been following me since then to now, and hopefully continue on to follow me, is on this particular podcast I focus mainly on MOLIAE, which is basically Moments of Love in Ancient Egypt, the name of the stage play adapted from my book called Mitsrayim, a memoir, and it deals with ancient Egypt. So I love writing and love storytelling. I think you can inspire people, you can influence people, you can have them to learn a different prospect about a particular culture. And of course, it has some romance in there, but as well as some adventure, some mystery, some history, of course, because I love history. And it's something that I enjoy to do. And not only as my purpose, but my passion. I enjoy writing. So I hope you enjoyed this particular episode. Don't forget to, of course, review my other podcasts of this other episodes of this podcast, and particularly start for the first one. That was the one that set it off, that told me that I need to do this podcast, besides my other one that I initially decided to do, which is Surviving Your Journey Towards Success. That in the week before that I was going to release the first episode for that podcast, something spoke to my spirit that I need to do this scene that kept popping up, and that is episode 1 of this podcast, Nichel Anderson Short Stories and Beyond, entitled Before the Time of Princess Aamina. So it's happened the same time as just started the whole process of me writing that book, Mitsrayim. And I just went to my Word document and started typing, and there I have it. I had a scene. So I knew that was the sign and the message that I need to continue to write. And here I am about to wrap up my first season, and I have seen good feedback that people are enjoying these stories. So I wanted to kind of give a little more detail of what led me to here for those new listening in for this week, as well for the ones that has been following me since then, and to just recap again, and hopefully you will continue to enjoy this and share this with other people. So let's go ahead and focus on this week, where it is episode 25. Again, I mentioned earlier that this is the lead up. We are leading leading up to the last episode for my season 1, 2017-2018 for this podcast show, Nichel Anderson Short Stories and Beyond, before the summer break. And just if you have not got that update, during the summer I decided I would start only releasing bi-weekly shows just for the summer. So May 28th is the last weekly episode of this podcast, as well as my other podcast that I mentioned. And then for the summer leading up to the first Monday of September starts the new season, which for me, it would be season 2 for 2018 to 2019. In the meantime, these remaining episodes is where you really need to decide, I need to become a member and a patron, because the last episode would be the final finale, and you want to know what's actually gonna happen, right? Resolve some of the clues that I gave previously and get you a more feeling of what's going on in this grand story. So at any rate, in this particular episode, it's where the moment deals with Nontu, and he's returning back. Now, we had a break of those character profiles where I introduce and reintroduce some characters, and I think that would be wonderful when this production returns back to stage and you will be able to connect to who these characters are when they come out on stage or when I'm promoting the play production, and you can kind of get a feel, right? You know the family, you know the other characters outside of that. So before I did the character profiles, the last cutoff point with Nontu was that he was on the other side of the Sudan, which is Sudan is another name for Africa, right? And he was visiting one of the tribal leaders that was on their team and against Mitsrayim, which of course Mitsrayim is King Milan, right? He is the current ruler at this particular time. And remember when I mentioned earlier, for the new people listening in, I encourage you to go back to episode 1, where it's titled Before the Time of Princess Aamina. It sets the tone to what's going on. And of course, to tune in for the next other 2 episodes, episode 2 and episode 3. And you will get a feel and get the backdrop of exactly where we at to this point to what happened then. So Nontu is dealing with those that were on the Orion side, that evidently they was the cause of this major war that took place that impacted King Milan in a severely way. So he received some type of information, right? That's what happened in the episode before. Now fast forward, here we are, and he is returning back to the High Orion Council members. Now, that's what this give you a backdrop for this episode when I'm about to start. But to recap from last week, okay, is that's where we focus, where Tahib, in his recent visit to Mitsrayim to visit his daughter and King Milan with his wife, Queen Mother Mana, is where he visited King Milan, and they had a series of talks. And this was very interesting, because you got the feel that not only they both respect one another, that Tahib trusts King Milan, not only loves his daughter, but is protecting his daughter. And so they reveal information back and forth. Of course, Tahib is from the ancients. He's from the Temple of Knowledge. And so he gives King Milan a lot of wisdom, because if you could pick up, King Milan soon will have to make a decision, right? And these decisions will have a role effect to other people soon after this major war that he got severely hurt. So in that episode, you got that sense of the family and the brotherhood, or what have you, or the father to the son, as he confessed into Tahib, and Tahib gave him knowledge and told him information about what he felt he should go forward. And then King Milan revealed something to Tahib, which was not revealed completely, because you have to become what? Of course, you have to become a patron, right, to my podcast. So just to let you know, to get the full short story of this week's short story clip, become a patron. You can do that by going to Patreon, which is www.patreon.com Nichel Anderson. There will be a link in the description field that you can go ahead and click and go right there to my Patreon page where you will get rewards as well. And of course, to be able to get access to the full short stories of these clips, because you want to be able to put it together, right? Not just the clip to get you a little feel for it. You want to get the whole experience. So consider to be a patron. So let's begin for this week of my podcast show, Nichel Anderson, Short Stories and Beyond. For this week, episode 25, entitled A Disagreement Amongst The Orions. Opening scene. After a long journey back from afar, Nontu still has good thoughts to his recent findings to reveal to the others. In the west bank of the Sudan, unknown to many but a few, Nontu of the High Council of Orions walked slowly into the den of the Orion cave. The dark gray cave walls were moss from still the previous Apsu showering down streams of water from the clouds. On this day, the Apsu ways cleared from that before. Only the light rays from Apsu above entered the slight openings of the cave. It was a bright day, as the tiny passage of opening exposed the Apsu above, as well as the ground of soil and dirt, as Nontu's footsteps echoed ever so slightly further into the cave. There, almost immediately, at a far distance, the council appeared once again, as always, before Nontu. There stood the eight that could still hold his fate, if a disagreement assured forward. Upon telling them the important find of a Mitsrayim from Mitsrayim, in a matter of moments, Nichel notices Nontu, as the opening light beamed a slight ray, exposing him entering their domain. It was Echo that followed the scent of Nontu and spoke before Nichel. Speaking in their Orion language, Echo speaks. Yantanofo, Hafan Safet, Atadafo. You should have been here days before, Nontu responds. For I have what you and the grand others of Orion seek against the king of Mitsrayim. Nichel looked in disbelief, as he always never trusted Nontu. Their disparity of common ground went back and forth far into their Orion history. Nichel walked over to the far end of a stone table with food and drinks, to then take a bite of something before speaking to Nontu. You speak of those words before, and return with nothing. Nontu ignored Nichel to focus on Echo, the leader with power, to return Nontu his honor of accomplishing something of worth and value. Echo nods, but it was agreeing with Nichel. What is it that you so-called find the days ago, Nontu? Only Nontu smiles as he noticed all was watching him. He said in a calm voice, A Mitsrayim, quiet entered the cave of old and gray Kamun. 4 of the other high-rank Orions were talking to each other to decode what was this that Nontu speaks. Nichel broke the accord of them in their Orion language. Yutu, Hekavet, Nofawa. Translation: You have nothing. Nontu, still ignoring his adversary, pulled out a rare but sparkling gold breastplate with the family emerald of the Abbas royal family crest, amidst and surrounded by the many gemstones of diamonds, sapphires, rubies, and emeralds. He placed it on the long stone Orion council table. Many of them immediately gasped, as they knew for which Nontu spoke. There was more to what he found. Nontu, boldly as ever, speaks with force. So, I say this day to you all, my name is worthy for which I bring you the keys to Mitsrayim. Echo, thinking faster than engulfing of running water, spoke up first with authority. This is only one of a few for which we need to move next on Mitsrayim. Where is this Mitsrayim? Nontu, that still wanted the power that he just opened up, continued. First, I need guards to secure the Mitsrayim here. For Echo cuts in before Lenko was about to do so, for they both were thinking the same as Echo felt. Echo speaks. He is of high rank of Mitsrayim. It would lead to Queen Hagar and her forces to learn of this. And I hide out here, Lenko continued. This concludes this week clip snippet for this episode. If you would like to listen to the full story, please visit my Patreon page. The information will be in the below description. Thank you again. Of this podcast, Nichel Anderson, Short Stories and Beyond. I will release only the clippet of the short story, and once you become a patron, you will have access to the full short story, what's going on next. And I do plan to release more director clip notes, as well as a bonus of releasing a story. Thank you again for joining my podcast this week. So long.